It's day 3 here in the valley. We have plenty of logging to do and a lot of money to hopefully make. Hello again, I am Jim Bob, and welcome back to Seasons in the Valley. So yeah, day 3. We still have another 2 days to go, including this one, before we can plant our corn and our soybean. It gives us plenty of time to get all of our fields done. So today is probably going to be more sort of logging as we look to remove all of those trees between fields 2 and 6. I've already gone ahead and removed the tree that was between fields 24 and 25. I did that last night just to see roughly how much I'd get per tree, and I got around about €7,000 for that tree, which is not bad at all. So I've got the main bulk of our equipment already here, as you can see, just bringing the front loader over. Let's get to full working lights. We've got our beacons on so people can see that we're causing a potential hazard here. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 trees to cut down. And you'll notice that our trees now have leaves. As we are now moving through into the mid part of spring, you can see that the leaves are returning to our trees, and we're starting to get some quite dense foliage that we're going to have to work with. You can also see that the colour of our bushes have changed from a sort of a horrible blackish kind of colour to this much more lifelike green colour. Again, it's that time of year where all of our leaves are starting to come through. So whereas we had kind of very sort of scrawny, spindly little bushes, now we have life showing through on the map, where we have these bushes that are now covered in leaves. But this is a lot of logging that we have to get done today. So this is pretty much going to dominate the entire day. 11 trees is quite a tall order, especially when you consider the shape and style of the trees. They're all awkward to work with. I better not cut that way, actually, because I'm going to... if I cut that way, it's going to fall into the middle of the road. Let's cut this way instead. The good thing is that they're all reasonably close together, so we're not going to have to go too far in terms of movement to actually go between trees when it comes to collecting up all those branches. And we're going to be using the BD frame for the first time today. Obviously I had a quick test run with it last night when I was doing that other tree. As a logging trailer, well, it's not bad, but it wouldn't be my first choice. But obviously it's a utilitarian tool. We haven't got just a log frame, we've also got a water tank for it and a flatbed frame as well, so that we can load pallets, etc. on it. So it's more of a multi-purpose sort of utility tool that we have, rather than something that is designed specifically for one thing. So it's not bad for logging. It's a decent size. It's got good maneuverability thanks to its sort of pivoting axle at the front, but it doesn't have any straps, which means you have to be very careful when you're delivering your logs, or else you do run the risk of stuff just spinning off the side. Not ideal, but as I say, it's not designed primarily as one thing or another. It's designed to kind of be a jack of all trades piece of equipment. Right, we've got a few bits left on here. There we go. And still got a couple of bits of foliage left on there as well. They are up here. Make our way along the tree. Oops. This is definitely one of the more awkward shaped trees to work with. You can see that the colour of the trees changed slightly as well. A lot of the silver has gone away, and we're now getting to a sort of a bit of a healthier kind of colour. Although having said that, we do still have some silvery bark in that tree, so it may just be that this is a different type of tree. The foliage is a different colour as well. That's a bit lighter, so this might be an oak tree compared to that being a willow tree. I think that might just be the difference, thinking about it. So the biggest problem that we have when it comes to doing these logs is, look how awkwardly shaped the branches are. They are not uniform at all. Not like if we were doing fir trees. Or, you know, they would be much easier to load onto a logging trailer. You know, they'd all be straight pieces of wood. Be much easier to work with. As it is, because of the way that these are shaped, we're going to have to kind of trim the logs to try and eliminate some of these curves, which means that we're going to end up with some quite long pieces and some quite short pieces as we try and make sure that everything fits together at a, you know, quite nicely on the trailer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually cut down all of the trees in one go, and then once all the trees have been cut and delimbed, we'll try and start loading up our trailer based on the logs that we actually have, so we can get something a little bit easier to work with when it comes to loading. I think that's probably going to be our best bet. Otherwise, you know, if we try and do them individual tree after individual tree, we are going to be kind of just taking a very long time per tree to get things done. And here again, you can see I'm having to cut the logs at certain angles because of these bends in them. It's going to make them quite difficult to stack. But I can't overdo it. That's the other thing as well, because otherwise, because there's no straps on our trailer, I can't tie them down. So if I make them too short, they're liable to kind of slip between the bars. So this is very much kind of a juggling act, a balancing act, trying to get everything lined up the way we want it without going a little too crazy. I've also got to be very wary when it comes to the actual trunk itself, not just in terms of its shape, but its weight as well. It is a big old thing. Alright, is this trunk too wide to cut? It looks like it might be. Get a cut ring to about there. So this one's going to fall in the opposite direction. There we go. I really don't like working with these trees just because they are so awkward. I much prefer, you know, if I'm going to do any logging, to cut down fir trees because they are so easy in comparison. You know, even doing them manually with a chainsaw, you know, it's pretty straightforward. You cut the tree down, you just run very straight and quickly up the trunk to delimb them, and then you've got a nice long straight piece of wood which you can cut up into whatever length that you want to load onto whatever trailer that you're using, be it an open frame trailer like we're using, where you can just stack the logs, or be it a trailer with walls that you want to just kind of drop them in and then push the logs out or tip the logs out at the end. You know, there's different ways of obviously transporting the wood, and whichever you feel is easier and more appropriate is the way to go. But I think there's one thing that I would potentially like to see as an addition to seasons, and that is the need to collect firewood in winter months to give you something else to do. Now, I don't think, sorry, I just bumped my pop filter there. I don't think there is, you know, any kind of heating requirements in seasons, but I just think it would be really cool if, as you get to winter and obviously the temperatures start to drop, that, you know, one of the things you need to do in winter is to actually collect some firewood in the shape of, you know, short logs that you can then use to power your heating for the day, you know, at the house, at the barn, at the farm, something like that. I just think that'd be quite an interesting little addition that maybe you would have the option to turn on or off if you didn't, or, if you did or didn't want to do it. Because I kind of feel, from what I've read and what I understand so far, that there isn't really a lot to do at all in winter, apart from maybe doing a little bit of logging, just to make some money. You don't need to clear the roads, because you can drive without them being cleared, although it does get a bit trickier. So if you have grain deliveries or product deliveries, it's probably advisable to at least clear a path through some of the heavier bits of snow. But it doesn't really do anything once you've got the snow. It just kind of sits there, and it doesn't stop you from doing anything in terms of moving around. It just makes it maybe a little bit trickier in places. Obviously you can't do any farming because the ground is frozen solid, and even clearing the snow will do nothing to fix that. It's just a simple temperature thing. So there doesn't seem to be a huge amount of things that you could do in seasons during winter, other than maybe just going out and ploughing. The snow ploughing. We don't have snow plough mods on console yet. That is something that some modders are reportedly working on. So it's going to be a while before we actually do see anything like that on console, I think, given the requirements for modding on consoles and all the changes that have to be made to PC versions of equipment, plus any scripting that might need to be changed or removed and reconfigured into standard sort of control scheme. There's a lot of work that goes into it, and then there's all the sort of redoing of textures and surfaces and stuff as well. So it's not a quick job just going to convert a mod that's a PC mod straight onto console. So it doesn't at all surprise me to see a load of console users in the groups, already complaining within like 2 days of seasons coming out, complaining that there weren't any snowplow mods. It doesn't surprise me at all, unfortunately. That is just, unfortunately, the way things are. And it doesn't also surprise me to see that most modders that I've seen don't really have any interest in doing snowplows for consoles. But it's not as if there aren't options out there. I mean, we can use buckets, we can use silage levelers. There are the Profi cleaners as well that are really, really good at clearing snow, amazingly good at clearing snow. Maybe not quite the most realistic, but they're a lot of fun. I actually played about in the snow with a friend of mine on a sort of a multiplayer test session, and we just drove a pair of little Profi cleaners up and down the streets and clearing snow, and it was quite good fun. And then we started breaking out some of the big stuff as well. A tractor with a bucket and a wheel loader with a big silage blade. Just to kind of experiment with what it's like to work in the snow. And it's not too bad. It takes, like I say, it takes a bit of practice, and you have to kind of compromise a little bit with some of the equipment that you can use, but generally it's pretty good. So it's not as if we have a desperate need for these things. It's they'd be nice to have snowplows, but it's not an essential requirement. We've got plenty of stuff that we can actually use to get the job done if we need to. But like I say, there just doesn't seem to be a huge amount of things to do other than just messing around in the snow when it comes to winter. So maybe going forward, like a firewood option would actually give you a reason to get out there and keep your farm ticking over. I don't know, just food for thought there. Right, so I'm going to keep cutting down some trees, working away on these things. Where is the tree? Is that the tree I've just cut? Wow. I just completely delimbed it in one go. That was unexpected. I like it when they're that easy to work with. So yeah, I'm going to carry on cutting these trees down, and once I've kind of cut them and delimb them a little bit, and we'll come back to you in a little while. Alright, so you can see the sun is starting to come up. This lovely little sunrise scene happening over there. I've also decided that we need to clear away some of these logs because they are getting a little bit sort of on top of each other with the way the trees are. So I'm going to try and work on the big, long, straight pieces first of all. So I've kind of pre-cut a few of these bits already. We're going to try and load these up nicely onto our logging trailer. Now, the sidewalls on this are a little bit different. So we can actually sort of lower. You can see in the middle we've got the two sets of green tongs on either side. You can actually lower these two middle tongs down on either side of the trailer, but it does make things a little bit awkward, the fact that there are no straps. So I mean, it's kind of useful for gaining access in some places, but in other places it doesn't really help that much. Like I said, this isn't my first choice of a logging trailer, but you know, I bought this not just as a logging trailer. I bought it as a nice sort of utility tool that we can use for multiple things, and it's a chance to try it out as well. It's a mod that's been out for a few weeks, but I just haven't had the chance to try it yet. So this is going to be that kind of test run, not just as a logging trailer, but also as a flatbed trailer, which I believe does have straps, and also as a water container as well. And if it proves that it's just a little bit too awkward to use, then we can always just sell it and replace it with more specialised gear. But I thought it would be quite nice to try out something a little bit different. So we're just going to kind of push our logs in. I have to be very careful when we do drive this over to the lumber mill. Make sure that we don't go around any corners too fast or hit any big bumps. As I say, we can't secure these logs down, so we're kind of at the mercy of the road conditions and the ground conditions as well. Just damn it. Just lower the weight down, see if that gives us a bit more of an advantage in balance at the rear. A little bit. And we're using the 1500 kilo weight here at the back. I thought, given the size of this tractor, we may well struggle if we try to run the 2000 kilo weight, but I don't know if we've actually got enough purchase with this claw to be able to pick up some of these really thick pieces. These are certainly the big money chunks. These are the blocks of wood that are going to make us the most money per piece, because they're so thick. There's so much wood for each one of these, on each one of these pieces that we're loading, so the value is going to be quite high. And they're relatively straight as well, which I think might help. I did consider getting a really long logging trailer and just trying to cut down the trees and carry the whole tree off in one go, but I've generally found that when you do that, you don't get anywhere near as much money for selling a complete tree as you do for actually selling it in pieces, because it's it requires, I'm guessing, because it requires a lot of work to process at the other end, so they don't pay you as much if you kind of pre-process it a bit by delimbing it and turning it into logs. You do seem to get more money than just dragging a complete tree that you've just chopped down. tend to get quite a fair bit more money. Oops. Right, these curvy pieces are going to be very awkward. So let's try and work on these big heavy pieces over here as well. I want to try and get all the big stuff out of the way. Get a nice big cash injection, because if, as I say, if it does prove too awkward, then I'm prepared to either get rid of this logging trailer and get rid of some, bring something else over, or even just bring our wood chipper over and start chipping these logs, these awkward branches. I suppose it depends how much money we make from these big pieces of wood. They're definitely going to be too heavy to carry by hand. So we are kind of resigned to loading them piecemeal like this. Right, we've got any other big bits that we can load. Look how much our tractor is struggling for traction. It's such a steep hill. Alright, did I cut this log? No, I didn't. And now I've got myself wedged on it. That's not good. Let's see if we can take this log down. Tractor is lurching forward a little bit. You can see our back wheels are just lifting off the ground. The weight of this branch, counteracting most of it. If we had that little 750 weight, we'd be all over the place. About now, it would be very bad indeed. Right, let's trim this log a bit. It's a little bit too big. Let's trim it about there, I think. Looks like we judged that about right. This is why I think maybe a closed container, something with sidewalls, might be a little bit better for these kind of logs, because they're so difficult to stack on top of each other. They're so irregularly shaped, and not just in terms of direction, but in terms of thickness as well. It makes stacking them, quite tricky at times. It also means that they end up being quite an unstable stack as well, prone to a lot of wobbling and moving around. Right, let's see if we can get a couple more pieces on here, and then we'll take this over and make our first sale of wood. So we'll just grab some of these branches here. Sawmill isn't too far away, actually, given where we are. It is, as you can see, sort of the other side of the river, the other end of field 11. There is actually a bridge going in there, so we could be a little bit cheeky and just drive over field 11 and then use that that bridge at the other end, rather than sort of taking on the traffic and potentially having a wreck. I think we might try that. And then we can always look on the way back. We can look for a sort of a path around the edge of the field, rather than just keep driving over someone else's field. That is a little bit naughty of us. Okay, this is the last piece, I think. Let's see if it wants to come off. There we go. Alright, so we'll park this up just here. Let's jump over to this T7. See, the logs immediately shift the second I put my foot down on the accelerator. Alright, so where is the footbridge? It's this way. So we've got that kind of gap there along the edge of field 11 that runs down the side. Is there enough space at the bottom of the field? Oh yeah, there looks to be enough. So we'll drive around the field next time, but let's see if we can actually get across on this bridge here. Hopefully it's going to be wide enough and not unstable. Ooh. A little bit worrying there when we made it across the first bit. We're across the second bit. And we do actually have... Ooh. Just paying attention. We do actually have multiple sell points for our logs here. So we can load them directly onto this sort of wooden lattice just here. Onto this sort of wooden conveyor system. And we load the logs on directly onto this. That will sell them. We also have a sell point just here for logs. So this is the sell point for logs here. And if we can get close enough, here you can see it's just kind of boxed just here. As long as we're pretty close to this, we should sell. This is a wood chip sell point here, but you can also see it also acts as a wood sell point as well. It's kind of a little bit strange. Yeah, all this place along here is also a wood sell point. So it's really closely marked right next to the wood chips. And that's where we're going to go and drive our trailer, because hopefully it'll just auto sell as we drive over it. Got some very weird behaviour from our logs there. Little bits needing, just sticking up and catching on part of the scenery there. But that wasn't bad. That was what, 14,000 or so for that load of wood that we just sold there. We got plenty more, so we're definitely going to be able to recoup the cost of our investment on our weeder from these trees. I think, given that I already raised 7 grand from one tree over by fields 24 and 25. We've just added another 14. That's 22 grand, give or take. The odd $100 here and there, or 100 euros. So we'll easily be able to sort of make back in total the 34,000 plus a little bit extra. And this is all going to go straight into paying off some of that large loan that we have. Now we're over 400,000 euros in debt. And so I want to bring those loan payments down as much as I possibly can, because otherwise they are potentially going to cause us some major issues as our calendar year continues. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to load up some more logs, and I'll catch up with you in just a moment. Decided to grab the wood chipper to make things a little bit easier. You can see just how much the landscape has changed now that we've moved to mid-spring, and we're starting to get some life popping up on these trees and the bushes, and the grass is starting to grow back a little bit. So we're going to need to do some more weeding as well to improve our grass yield. That'll be a job for tomorrow, for day 4. We'll get another sort of layer of weeding done to boost our crops. And normally, as you know, I like to skip the driving, but just want you to see just how much the map has changed now that we've got stuff starting to grow in. So much more vibrant and alive. See, obviously the grass is now in its initial stage of growth, its first growth stage. So we've got thicker grass starting to show up on the ground. You know, the bushes are all green, the trees are all different shades of green. The sun is making even the fir trees look a little bit, you know, more lifelike as well. Like they're getting a little bit greener. It has just completely transformed this map. Just going, you know, from one day to the next. And you can hear all the birds just singing as well, which is really, really a nice little touch. It's just loads and loads of bird song everywhere. So what we're going to do is to kind of speed up this logging process, because this is going to take me, you know, the entire day, and I'd rather not spend the whole day just working on this one little patch if possible with these trees. Is I'm going to kind of probably retire the BD frame, or at least the logging part of the BD frame for now. We'll keep hold of it because I think it could be quite useful when we do come to work on some fir trees. But what I'm going to do is we're going to start loading up with some of these smaller pieces. We're going to start loading up some more wood chips and take those back and store those up so we can get an even bigger sort of income during the winter months. We don't have to worry about, you know, money quite so much, as long as we can survive through to winter. Then we'll have a nice little stash of cash waiting for us in our silo. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to buy a logging claw for my wheel loader that we have sat at the farm. We haven't used that yet, and I'm going to try and carry some of those big tree trunks in a little bit more of their entirety and just dump them at the logging mill. And we don't have the weight or the strength in our T5 to be able to do that. Our T7 can't have a front loader harness, so the wheel loader becomes the next obvious option. You know, it's big, it's heavy, it's got some good strength behind it, so we can actually lift up, you know, big chunks of tree and then just carry them piece at a time over the river into the sawmill and try and sell them that way. We won't probably get quite as much money that way as if we were selling them in much easier to handle logs, but it's going to be a much quicker use of our time, I think, and then we could perhaps get on to prepping some more of our fields a little bit. So I'm going to carry on sort of ferrying our equipment back over there, and I'll catch up with you in a little while. And there is the logging claw that we have ordered, using the large maxi claw. Let's get connected onto that. With the wrong I'm trying to connect to the wrong side of it, so I'm not getting the symbol pop up. Oh dear. There we go. Alright, logging claw grabbed. Let's make our way over to the fields. Don't use this New Holland I was going to say the New Holland JCB. I don't use this New Holland wheel loader very much. I tend to use the JCB one. Occasionally I'll use the Liebherr one, but the Liebherr one just seems way too underpowered, really, for a lot of the jobs that I like to use wheel loaders for. So more often than not, whenever I need to use a wheel loader, I'll use the JCB one. But this is a New Holland themed farm, so it does kind of make sense to use the New Holland wheel loader. Only thing we can't do with it is convert the front wheels. We can't fit this with twin front wheels like we can with the other two. So it stays in its kind of default configuration. Alright, so here we are with our W170C going to grab... Oh, look how much of a struggle it is to get up this hill. I'm going to grab this trunk here. And see just how easy we can actually carry this whole thing. Not too bad. I think if we're careful we can probably make it across the bridge like this. So let's try and sell this whole tree. Like I said, we're probably not going to get anywhere near as much cash for this as we would do as if we were chopping it up and selling it in stages, but it's going to be much, much quicker to remove the whole tree this way. So I don't mind that. I don't mind losing a little bit of potential cash for making things a lot easier. It means we might even be able to get on with a bit of weeding today as well. Being careful I don't want to catch the branches of those other trees. And this is where it's going to get tricky, trying to get over this bridge, because this little sort of dirt mound that feeds into it, it's quite rough and quite bumpy entrance, and I'm not 100% certain we can actually clear it without any real issues. Let's be very careful. And then can we get underneath the wires? That's the next question. This is rough here. Take it nice and steady. Lower the tree down a bit. Yeah, look, we're catching on the cables. Alright, that's a shame. It's not going to let me go through. Alright, so we're going to have to trim this. So let's trim it about there. Hopefully that'll give us enough clearance. And this is going to be way too heavy to pick up, I'm guessing. Yeah. So we'll have to cut this into pieces that we can actually carry by hand and throw into our logging area. €151 for that piece of wood. That's not much at all, is it? This one's still too heavy. There we go. Now we can pick up this little T section. Only €100 for that piece. So this is not a particularly good value tree for us. Even in these little pieces like this. 114 for that one there though. Can we get through now? Still a little bit too high. We're going to have to cut a bit more off. But this is definitely much, much easier. 116 for that piece. You watch, we'll get, you know, just a couple of £100 for this. It's going to be very disappointing, I'm sure. And we'll plonk it over here on the trestle. I actually got a decent amount there, 2,688. So not bad, but you know, for that whole tree there, we only got around about €3,000. I truly believe if we'd actually cut that up into logs, we could have probably got about double that. So this is the sacrifice, this is the trade-off for, you know, ease of completing this sort of logging task. Seeing as we're speeding things up a bit, let's speed our time back up as well. I had it set on 5 times, on real time, because I was expecting this to take me hours upon hours to get done, but now we can do this in a much, much quicker space of time. And those smaller pieces that we have left over, some of them are actually a little bit temperamental. I was trying to pick a couple of them up with the log claw, and they just weren't picking up. I was passing straight through the log. So there are some small pieces that are a little bit glitchy that we're going to have to kind of work with, and those we'll try and pick up by hand and wood chip, and if we can't even do that, then I suppose we'll just have to stump grind them until they disappear. But this is going to be another tricky tree for us to shift, because again we're looking at a tree that is very, very spindly. So the plan for this, if we can bring this down a bit, is to kind of just delimit down here, and then we can throw those branches through the chipper. So let's just climb up the frame a little bit here. I'm going to cut off the ones at the top and the bottom, but leave the side ones alone. Yeah. This way we should be able to actually carry this thing without it sliding out of the claw, and also without it catching on those wires. Oh. Don't need to do that. Did it again. This is going to be frustrating if I'm not careful. Might just have to lower this log down and start from fresh. This is the next piece to get rid of. I suppose we'd better get rid of this one as well, just to be on the safe side. We may even be able to carry some of these pieces on our trailer. Some of the ones that are a bit longer and straighter, so it's not a complete loss as well. We do still have the option of getting a little bit of extra cash for some of these pieces. But I do want to make this as quick and painless a job as is possible. So that does mean sort of chopping off quite some substantial pieces of wood here. Let's reposition the saw. There we go. Same again on this side. Just get a nice clean trunk. I think this is going to be the easiest thing to do. Got this really awkward piece at the bottom now, haven't we? So you can actually climb up this piece. Yes, I can. Right. If I can climb it, I can cut it. Might not be very pretty. And there we go. Piece cut. So now we've got another log that we can go and sell, and hopefully this will actually pay us quite a nice amount of money. What I am going to do is I'm actually going to reposition this within the claw so that we've got a little bit better balance with it, because we're kind of at one end, so we can get a little bit closer to that sort of tipping point in the center. And I mean by that I mean the gravity center rather than the actual geographical center of the tree. Should be a little bit easier for us to control. He says immediately losing control of the tree. Alright. We are going to have to stick a little bit closer to this thick bit. do. Ah, caught the trailer. Didn't want to do that. Never mind. Nothing we can do about it now. Just have to be careful. Take it nice and easy over here. Make our way over to the sawmill. I am going to have to cut the field actually on this one, just because it's such a wide piece. I am going to end up catching one of those other trees, so apologies to the farmer that owns this field. I am shortcutting, and it's a bit naughty, but it's the only way I can make sure I can actually get this thing across. There's certainly no way we could go through the village like this, or even through the main entrance because of those weighbridges. Even there, look, we're catching on one of the pipes and the posts. This is going to be awkward. A lift to get over the shed. This makes me feel like I'm a dog with a stick that's trying to walk through a couple of trees and keeps catching it. I'm going to have to trim the end of this tree. It's just too long. Alright, there's my cut point there. You see those videos of dogs carrying these huge, great big sticks and then, you know, just thunk, coming to a complete standstill and then trying to figure out how to get through. That's what I feel like at times when I've got a long stick like this, a long log, and I'm trying to get through tight points like this. It does make me feel like I'm a dog with a great big stick. Probably looks a bit like it as well. There we go, £3.5 grand for that piece. That's not too bad at all. When you consider how much we cut off that tree as well, the rest of that tree will be worth quite a bit as well, either in terms of wood or log chips. Now, trying to pick this thin piece up with the claw, it's too heavy at the moment. Trying to pick that up with a claw would just be a nightmare because it would rattle around like crazy. We wouldn't have a purchase, so we'll just cut it and haul it by hand. It's going to be the much quicker and easier thing to do. $2.97 for that piece, maybe $100 for this piece if we're lucky. 91, yeah, that's about what I expected. Alright, more trees to carry on with. I will be back in a moment. Time to kind of clean up on the operation now. We've got rid of all the big bits of tree. All these branches that are left over. We're taking the main entrance to the sawmill because it's a lot smoother a journey. And you saw that just pulling away, once I actually connected up to this thing, I immediately lost a log. Trying to be as careful and as smooth as possible as I drive through here to avoid that happening. And taking that bumpy track would have just, you know, thrown quite a few of these logs off, I think. There we go, there's another whole stack of cash. We're up to 46,000 now, which is quite nice to see. We'll go back over the bridge. And I'm going to go this way around this time, I think. We'll load up on the rest of the logs, and then we probably might not need to use the chipper for that much at all, if anything. You know, just going to be one or two few small pieces that are just a little bit too awkward that will end up chipping. But the vast majority, I think we're going to be able to actually load onto this little Lizard BD trailer and haul over for a bit of extra cash. So we're going to keep doing that, and then once we've finished with all the logs, we'll have completed all of our logging requirements. You know, all the stumps have already been grinded out. We've already dealt with field 24 and 25, so this is all that's left that needs to be done. And this time we're going to park on this side of the road, I think. Just there. So, right, I'll carry on with this. I'll catch up with you again in just a few minutes. We're in the final stages of cleanup now. Sold another trailer full of these branches, so we're up to 51,500, and now we're just chipping these last few pieces. I've already put a few through the chipper. Just getting these last couple. This one here is a bit of a glitched log. Only really seems to have any substance. You can see I can't pick it up anywhere, apart from the points where we cut it from other logs, from other branches. So this is one of the ones that I couldn't actually pick up with the logging claw. But hopefully it'll go through the chipper. Might need a bit of coercing. You can see, look, we've got no collisions on it whatsoever just there, but we do have just here. So if I cut there, and I'm going to have to try and drag this in. And it's going to go a little bit haywire, as you can see. It's actually falling through, but if I can get that to actually go into the chipper. There we go. That should chip the whole thing. You know, the obviously the bit that was glitched we get no wood chips for, but the rest of it we will. A little tiny piece here that I didn't spot earlier, and I can't pick this up either. So that might be the leftover remains of a stump. So we'll have to grind that out. But essentially, we've done exactly what we set out to do at the start of this episode. We've cleared all the trees that were between these two fields. We've still got that one at the top, but that's actually kind of at the edge of the field, and we're going to have to maybe roll back the edge of that field ever so slightly anyway when we come to join these two together. So our logging mission is done. We've raised a little bit of cash, so let's actually pay off some of our loan with that. I want to keep a little bit of cash on hand. So we're down to €375,000 euros of debt. Now all we need to do is basically start transporting everything back. And then I'm going to finish the day off camera by weeding our grass fields a second time. And then tomorrow, day 4, we will start combining and ploughing these fields. Obviously, this field here is already ploughed and fertilised. This one isn't, so we need to plough this and plough out this strip of land here to combine the two. So we'll do some ploughing and resculpting here. We'll do some ploughing and resculpting on fields 24 and 25. And then come day 5, we'll be ready to plant our corn and our soybeans. So that's it for another episode. Thanks for watching. I am Jim Bob, and I'll be back with some more Seasons in the Valley very soon.